doesn't.
That's why I'm sitting here with you. Because you remind me of you. Everything about you reminds me.
It doesn't.
Except you. How do you count the stars?
Autumn's Fall is my debut album. It was released in 2015, 10 years ago on this day. It's called Autumn's Fall because I wanted to symbolize the so-called mature phase of autumn. Autumn was always my most favorite season of the year, and when I saw this painting by this Danish painter Brandekilde, I was inspired to make a debut album called Autumn's Fall. I also thought that the name Autumn's Fall was this kind of a silly word salad. Like, I thought that autumn and fall, it's basically the same word. So I thought that it was kind of this nonsense, to be honest. But it's also a phrase which I saw, and I thought that it was the appropriate name for the title. As it's the 10th anniversary of Autumn's Fall, I decided to take a retrospective into the making of this album and the recording. So Autumn's Fall was written, some of the songs I wrote when I was 16, like the opener Glancy. I wrote that song when I was 16 years old. I came up with this weird piano riff and I turned it into one of the first songs on the album. But the recording sessions for Autumn's Fall officially started in 2014 with the song Perfect Time. It was my first officially released single, and the others followed. The roots of Autumn's Fall as my LP album began back in 2012 and 2013 when I recorded this demo EP, a rough demo EP called Autumn's Child, and it featured some of the songs which got developed later for the LP album Autumn's Fall. For example, Glancy is on the demo EP, Butterflies, and the rest of the songs on the EP, like In My Dreams, You was included on Ikigai, my latest album. So the demo EP was sort of my playground for learning the techniques of recording and producing, since Autumn's Fall was recorded entirely at my home. It was very primitive because I had to use a Toshiba laptop, which was a model from 2007. It was a great laptop, but I had to overcome a lot of obstacles when it came to recording because it wasn't as advanced as today's computers. But when I got this Lenovo 2013 model laptop, it got smoother, but I had to bounce a lot, which was common back in those years because the CPUs weren't as powerful and I was learning on the fly. I was heavily inspired by bands like, of course, the Beatles, Radiohead, and you can hear on some of the songs which bands got closer as inspiration for those songs. Perfect Time was heavily influenced by John Lennon. Eventually was a Radiohead influenced song, and so on. What helped me a lot was when I found a music producer and a mixing engineer, Kevin Stockley. He mixed Perfect Time and some of the other songs on Autumn's Fall, and he helped me a lot to sort of learn the mixing and producing of my songs, because I sent him my stems, and when he sent me his mixes, I could hear what he was doing with the stems, and it helped me a lot to try and mix some of the songs myself. Kevin mixed Perfect Time, he mixed Wonderful Day, Butterflies, Seems Like Yesterday, but the remaining songs, Glancy, Kevin also mixed Come to Me, of course, but the remaining songs, Glancy, eventually the Autumn Sunset interlude, Part of Me, Goodbye, and Autumn's Fall. These remaining songs were mixed by me because Kevin was busy, unfortunately, at the time, so I had to mix the remaining songs myself, since I wanted to release it in October 2015. The challenges I faced during the recording were mainly the technical ones with the computers at the time, and also my lack of deep knowledge about recording, producing and mixing my own songs. Autumn's Fall is about this story I came up with. It's basically a story about a man who got to a later stage of his life, and he's reminiscing of the good times, of the bad times. The symbolic nature of Autumn's Fall is, like I mentioned, the deep phase of autumn, which symbolizes maturity and the later stages of life. And I wanted to tell a story like, you have side one of Autumn's Fall. It starts with Glancy, which is kind of a confusing song. You have many quotes from very odd movies. For example, there are quotes from It's a Wonderful Life, movies which are in public domain. I wanted to make this sort of an hypnotizing avant-garde piece with the radio noises and the lyrics, and also the white noise and the little lost guitar solo towards the end of the song. So it's a story about reminiscing of the good times, the bad times, the happy times, the sad times. I was going through this period when I was contemplating the purpose of my life, the meaning of life in general, and I wanted to express it in this art piece like a music album. The songs which got on the album were mainly the ones which I thought were fit for the storytelling of the album Autumn's Fall, and some of the songs which I already had written, like You and In My Dreams, which appeared on the demo EP, they didn't get included on Autumn's Fall just because I wasn't very happy with how the recordings turned out when I tried to make a final version for Autumn's Fall. So that's basically why they weren't included in Autumn's Fall, but they were included in the later albums. With Autumn's Fall, I would like everyone who listens to it to have sort of this experience about life, about contemplating life in general, and to have appreciation for living, so to say, when he finishes listening to the album. Recording of Autumn's Fall was difficult. There were many technical challenges and also challenges with my knowledge and experience. I didn't have much experience recording, and the whole album was recorded at home, and I had to overcome many obstacles to be able to make it sound sort of professional. I recorded all the instruments except for little parts like the saxophone solo in Wonderful Day was recorded by Nathaniel Madsen, this great saxophone player from the United States. But apart from it, it was recorded by me, and I had help by Kevin. Kevin helped me a lot with the mixing and producing. He taught me a lot of things when I heard what he did with the stems, as I mentioned earlier. And I think that the recordings turned out okay. I'm actually quite satisfied with the results when we look at all the lack of experience and knowledge I had with recording. So I'm actually quite happy with it. Of course, I can imagine a different approach 10 years later, but for my first recordings, I'm pretty happy. Looking back at 2015 and the release of Autumn's Fall, it was very magical for me, because it was my debut album, of course, but it's also a bit sad to me, because 10 years ago people had different opinions and thoughts about people who tried to make music. Back then there was no AI, there was no option to generate anything when it came to melodies and songs, so people were quite amazed when I told them that I'm releasing my debut album, and I'm very glad that I got to experience my first recordings and my debut album during the times when there was no AI, because I was forced to do everything by myself and come up with everything by myself. The result was a very personal album for me. There are many themes and motifs in Autumn's Fall that I was experiencing during that time. When I started recording, I thought that my voice was sounding quite thin, so I was doing my best to lower my voice as much as I could to make it sound as thick as I could. And you can hear it when you compare Autumn's Fall with my later albums, that the singing style is a bit different. But overall, yeah, Autumn's Fall was very magical for me when I released it back in 2015. But I'm also quite sad that the view about music making changed over the years. If you're a musician listening to this retrospective, I would like to encourage you to make recordings, to not be shy and experiment with your voice, with your music. Do as much as you can on your own. Don't rely on AI or any generators of music. Try to come up with your own stuff. Yes, it's much harder than to generate something with Suno. I have this little policy that even though I can generate music with Suno, I don't ever want to do it, because I think that the music is losing its meaning when it's not your own, when it's not personal to you, when it's just something that you generated. So I encourage you to make your own recordings, experiment with your sound, and trust me, you will feel very blessed when you end up finishing your songs, and you will be able to say that you came up with them all by yourself. Listening to Autumn's Fall is very personal for me because it's like a time machine for me. I can hear all the things I was going through at the time, and all the memories are there. It's like a time capsule, and I'm very grateful that I didn't give up back then with recording and finishing Autumn's Fall. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this retrospective, I invite you to listen to Autumn's Fall on Spotify or Apple Music or Tidal or even on YouTube, and tell me what you think. Many of the steps in my recording process were very primitive, like you can hear, for example, in Butterflies, the tapping rhythm. It's just me tapping the guitar with my finger and holding a microphone in my other hand to capture it. And you know, sometimes as I tapped like this, my finger slipped and it got like this. And you can hear it in the recording of Butterflies and also of the instrumental interlude Autumn Sunset. And yeah, I hope you'll like the album if you haven't heard it yet. And that's basically it. Autumn's Fall is 10 years old today, I'm very grateful that I got to finish the album, and even though not many people have heard it, I hope that at least one person listening to this retrospective will enjoy it, and if you will, please let me know. And yeah, that's it. Autumn's Fall. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.